This is Fred Beck from Fred Talk Exciting. Today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Andy Clarke. So, what have you been up to, Andy? What's going on with you?
Well, I had my first dose of the vaccine on Monday, so that's something. I guess that was a pinprick of excitement in what is at the minute still quite a kind of dreary landscape, I guess. But it was kind of interesting. It was interesting because it was in Westfield, which is a massive shopping centre just down the road from where I live in East London, and it was the first time since pre-pandemic that I'd been out and just seen loads of people all in one place. I've been out, plenty, but this was the first time I saw something that looked like a pre-pandemic scene. So that was good. That was good. But yeah, no problems with me. All is well.
And do you feel any different? So, you got the prick probably in your arm. Do you feel any different now than you did about a couple of weeks ago?
No. You get it. Yeah, I got it in the top of my left arm there. They basically ask you if you're right or left-handed, and whichever side is not your strongest side, they jab it in there. It's just very slightly achy, the top of my arm, but nothing. I had the AstraZeneca one. I think it just depends on the day. I don't think you can book either one or whatever it is. So yeah, it was pretty slick operation, to be honest. In and out in about half an hour, something like that.
I mean, they've done loads of people, so it probably would be quite quick. I don't know when they're kids. I'm 16 still, so I don't know. I've probably got a while yet until I get my
Yeah.
vaccine. But I'm not. I've got asthma and everything, but I'm not vulnerable at all, really. But if we move on a bit to the fights happening this weekend, I was lucky enough to talk to Greg Marriott, who's Billy Joe Saunders' nutritionist. He's one of the main nutritionists. He's MTK Global's one nutritionist, and he was telling me that the fight is 100% on. Because if you're on Twitter yesterday, boxing doesn't normally trend on Twitter unless the fights are happening or the weigh-ins might have happened. But nothing had happened. And Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo haven't even faced off yet, and it was already trending. I guess you probably saw a lot of stuff about the ring and how it's going to be, if it's going to be firm, if it's going to be loose, about the ropes, and how big it's going to be. But what are your thoughts on the situation? And one of my comments is, why hasn't that, if that's so important, why was it never discussed in the contract?
This is posturing, basically. Sometimes these things do get put in the contract, but generally they don't. And then there are certain parameters for a boxing ring, and they can vary from commission to commission in America. And people find it slightly odd that boxing rings are not all the same size. In the UK, they're generally 20 feet. But football pitches aren't. They don't all have to be the same size. There are parameters for them, and some will be bigger than others, and teams will sometimes have a smaller playing surface if that suits their style. So that's just how this goes. And if it's not, like you say, if it's really that important to you, then you have to try and get it in the contract. What would have happened if Team Saunders had tried to get a big ring in the contract? Well, I'm pretty sure Canelo's team would have countered and said no, because they don't want a big ring. There's no. It did kind of slightly entertain me yesterday, the idea that people seem to be throwing around that Canelo's desperate for a small ring because he knows that it's going to be really hard work to try and pin Saunders down. And it probably will be quite hard work for him to pin Saunders down in the first half of the fight anyway. That's kind of the way I look at it. But this notion that Canelo is desperate for a small ring because he's afraid of a bigger ring is just absolute nonsense. So this is just, for me, this is just kind of a bit of one-upmanship. Team Saunders will know that with it not having been in the contract, that Canelo will decide how big the ring is because he's Canelo and he's the biggest name in world boxing and he gets what he wants. They know that. But what they're doing here is just trying to make it absolutely clear. We're not here to make up the numbers. We're not here just to dance to your tune. We're here to win. We won't be pushed around. It's just some good old-fashioned, fight week shenanigans, just mind games. That's what it is. There was never any remote possibility that Saunders was going to turn his back on this fight and leave because the ring is 2 feet smaller than ideally he would like it. Turn his back on all that training. You look at the shape he's got himself into and the money he'll get paid for this fight, let alone the opportunity. It was never, ever, ever going to happen.
I mean, you got the weigh-in, you got this week, the first one was just started the ring, but you're probably going to soon hear about how the gloves aren't right, and they're going to go through every single step of the fight, the gloves, the shorts, all kind of that sort of stuff. But I think it's like 4 o'clock, 4 a.m. Yeah, 4 a.m. in the morning for us this time in the UK. I was wishing it'd be about 5 o'clock because that's not. I can wake up at 5, but 4 is always pretty bad. It's like an airport wake up time. But who do you think initially? I know Billy's quite a big underdog in this fight, but who do you think wins it?
I think Canelo wins it. I think he might find it difficult to track Saunders down in the first half. I think that'll be quite difficult for him because he's a very good mover. Saunders, he's very skillful. He's a really good fighter, and I think Canelo will take him a few rounds to just make those adjustments, get a little bit closer, cut the ring off that little bit better, cope with the movement. But then in the second half of the fight, I think he'll take over. I think it's possible that he might be even maybe down on the cards at halfway, or at least it'll be close. But I don't think that Saunders is going to be able to hit and move for 12 rounds against Canelo. I think in the second half of the fight, he'll start to get to him, and maybe he'll even stop him late, because I think the inactivity is going to hurt Billy Joe Saunders. The last 3.5 years, he hasn't boxed much. You could argue that he shouldn't be a super middleweight, that he's really a middleweight. And you would say that at best, really, he's kind of stood still. After that win against David Lemieux, you could probably argue more convincingly that he's gone slightly backwards. In that period, Canelo has just got better and better and better and better. I've always been a Saunders admirer. I think his skills are brilliant. You know, it's great to watch. I like watching that style, the hit and move style. I enjoy watching it. Not everybody does, but I do. And I think 3 years ago, I would have given him much more of a chance. But as I say, I think he's stagnated. I think Canelo's just by now a distance the best fighter in the world, and I can't see Saunders winning the fight, I'm afraid.
Do you think that that's quite a bold prediction, saying that he gets stopped? Canelo says he'll stop him in the rounds, saying 9 to 10 rounds. That's quite late into the fight. But Billy's quite hard to pin down. It's quite hard. He's never really been properly hit, has he? Again, I think the Eubank fight might be the fight where he got hit the most, and that was a very long time ago, like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, he is. He is hard to track down. Absolutely. But he's not. He's in with an absolute elite level fighter here. People bandy around the term elite quite a lot in boxing, but for me, it applies to a handful of fighters, a handful at any given time. You know, you've got world level fighters, you've got European level, whatever level you want to describe as, but elite is, you know, you're talking like 4 or 5 fighters maybe at any one time, and that definitely applies to Canelo. He's that good. You know, look at Callum Smith. Like Callum Smith, who was regarded rightly as a really good world champion. You know, a good, solid world champion, and he never even nearly lost a fight up until that point, and he couldn't do a single thing with Alvarez, not a single thing. Now Saunders is a different kind of fighter. He is a good mover, like you say. He's difficult to pin down, but I don't think that Canelo's going to struggle to get hold of him in the second half of the fight. I just don't, and I'm not absolutely certain that he'll get the stoppage. But you just look at performances he's had, particularly that one against Callum Smith, and I know they're different, but you look at the reputation that Callum Smith took into that fight, and you look at how easily Canelo dealt with him. And I know people will say he struggled with southpaws a little bit, and a point of the Erislandy Lara fight, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it certainly is. And remember, Callum Smith wasn't just a world champion; he had 2 belts and the Ring Magazine title, which is kind of the best in the division, whoever has that belt. And I saw a tweet today, because if you're not going to beat, you got to work all the areas of weakness that Canelo has, which the problem is he's very few. So one of those might be the mind games. But I saw some things on Twitter saying when he fought Rocky Fielding, his brother, Canelo's brother, had been kidnapped in Mexico on fight week, and Canelo was negotiating the release of him. So you can't really get into his mind that that's happened to him. But I saw Kugan Cassius, he put a tweet out today saying, can't wait till Tyson Fury gets there this week. I think Eddie Hearn's getting there today, and as well as Tyson Fury. And this is now kind of covered the Canelo Billy Joe situation. We'll move on to the Tyson Fury Andy Joshua situation. Since you kind of work at Sky, what do you think is kind of going on there?
I think they're just in the process of trying to make the fight, and they have been for a while. And the kind of expected date we hear whispers about across the media, across across all boxing media. Seems to be getting pushed back a bit, but I think it will happen. I'm still confident it will happen. Whether they'll be able to get 2 of them in this year now, I wouldn't be so sure, because if this first one doesn't happen until kind of late July, early August is maybe looking more likely now, then that's not much of a turnaround time to have a second fight this year. But just as long as we get one, I'll be happy. I think boxing fans will be happy. So I do still expect it to happen. The uncertainty is not great for the 2 camps. It's difficult to know what to do in terms of officially going into camp, if you like. But I don't think really either of them are the kind of fighters who need that official start date, because they don't really stray too far away from the gym anyway. Fury trains pretty much all the time, as far as I can work out. Anthony definitely stays in good condition. So I think even if they ended up getting 6 weeks notice, which is never going to happen, obviously they want a big lead time, but even if that did happen, I think they'd both be fine with it. They're expecting it to happen, and they're ready to kind of push the button on it, the pair of them, anytime, as soon as terms get agreed.
I mean, Fury's he's kind of got a good load of people around him right now. He's in America with Sugar Hill Stewart. I think Josh Taylor's out there. I think Ben Davison as well. And then Andy Joshua is training down in Finchley Gym in London. So they're both certain the fight will happen. It's just the date. I think it'll probably be mid to late August. It'll happen. But then don't take too much of time. But who do you think wins that fight when it's eventually made?
I've always thought, like, over the last since he came back, since that first fight against Wilder, because before that you just couldn't really be sure what you were going to get with Fury, with the Fury Mark II, if you like. I've always thought that Fury is an incredibly difficult fighter to beat. I won't say I predicted that he would beat Klitschko, but I certainly thought that he had a good chance, because he's just so unusual for heavyweight. He's been boxing for a really, really long time, so that's why he looks so at home in the ring, and it's just so capable of making those adjustments and adapting to pretty much anything that comes his way. For that reason, I've always thought that he would. Once we saw him against Wilder in the first fight, and we could tell that he was still Tyson Fury, I've always thought that he would probably beat Joshua. And if I put my house on it, I would still pick Fury. But the closer we get to it, the more chance I give Joshua. I'm not really sure why. I think it's probably because some of the things that Fury's been saying, I don't think there's any chance that you're going to end up taking anyone lightly in a fight of this magnitude. But I do think that Fury genuinely thinks that there's no one out there who can really touch him if he makes sure that he's done everything he needs to do in camp. And I'm completely confident he will do everything he needs to do in camp. But I still think there's a slight possibility that even if it's 1% or 0.5%, that he is so convinced he's that much better than everybody else in the division that could just let Joshua in a bit and cause Fury maybe to go about the fight in a way that might suit Joshua more. And he is a very dangerous puncher, Anthony Joshua. So you can never rule him out of this kind of fight. But like I said, if I had to put my house on it, then I would still go with Fury. But I'm not as completely sure about that as I was probably a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, everyone at kind of Sky Sports Matchroom they're of course going to go with Andy Joshua, and then loads of people, everyone else, kind of gone with Tyson Fury. I mean, the bookies have Tyson. They still have it quite close. It's not like if you bet £20, it's 20 return. It's more if you bet 10. Sorry, yeah, if you bet 10, you get about 15 return. So it's still pretty close. No one kind of really knows which way to go. But all right, Andy, I don't take too much of time, so thank you so much for the interview. And you've got your podcast with Matthew Macklin, and where can people find that?
Pretty much anywhere, really. Macklin's Take, you can get it on iTunes, Spotify, all the normal places. We've had Frotch on this week. Carl Frotch, he was great fun. We're on YouTube these days, so Macklin's Take, you can find us there too. Yeah, we do the audio podcast every week and put bits and pieces out on YouTube. So yeah, catch up with that if you get the chance.
Yeah, perfect. I'll put the link in the description for that. All right, Andy, thank you so much, mate.
No problem.